Hi everyone. We're going to try something new here. I found an article at Answers in Genesis. Apparently it's now official. They are going to reveal the best argument for the existence of God. And we're going to have fun with it. So, this is an article written by Jason Lisle, Dr. Liar. The creationist apologist with a PhD in astrophysics. I have some videos about him. Anyway, I hope this works fine with the setup and everything. I'm sort of doing this live. Well, not live, but I'm gonna record me reading the article, and then I'm gonna fix some stuff in post probably. But this is the setup we're gonna have to work with here. Okay. So, what is the best argument for the existence of God? This is apparently chapter 27. I would expect it to be chapter 1. It's kind of important. Okay. There are a number of common arguments, blah, 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 blah. Here is a conversation between a Christian and an atheist. Straw man alert. Christian. Everything with a beginning requires a cause. The universe has a beginning and therefore requires a cause. That cause is God. Okay, before I even look at the atheist response, no, we don't know that everything with a beginning requires a cause. That is just something that seems intuitively obvious, but you can't prove that. And we know of things that begin, at least in some sense of the word, without a cause. For example, radioactive decay, the process of a specific decay. It doesn't have a cause. It just begins and it happens. It doesn't have a cause. I mean, you could say that the daughter isotope began to exist without a cause. That's my point. This idea that everything needs to have a cause is based on a very outdated understanding of cause and effect. The universe had a beginning. We don't know that. We know that the universe, as we currently think of it, started with a Big Bang, which, of course, they reject. But we don't know about if there was anything before that, if the universe began, if the entirety of existence began with the Big Bang. In fact, it's looking doubtful. It does according to general relativity, but general relativity breaks down under those circumstances, so it doesn't really work. So let's see what they say here. Even if that were true, blah, 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 that everything requires a cause, which it's not. How do you know that the cause of the universe is God? Yeah. Exactly. And how does the Christian respond? Living creatures, by changing the topic. Now you have to understand, this is a Christian making up this conversation. So what has happened here is this is apparently such a bad argument that when the atheist responds, even the straw man atheist that they've made up responds, that shuts them up completely. And they have to change the subject from cosmology to biology. They're not going to try to shoot this down. They just give up. So, Christians, this is actually one of your heroes here. The doctor who is a creationist. Saying, the doctor of astrophysics, who is a creationist, is saying, don't try to use the cosmological argument. It's so weak, I can't even defend it against a straw man that I built. Okay. The living creatures of this world clearly exhibit design. No, again, we'll wait with the atheist. I should do this. Hide it. At least I'm hiding it from myself behind the webcam image. I hope this is what the video will look like, but we'll see. The living creatures exhibit design. No, they don't. We see design because we are accustomed to thinking that anything that works a certain way was intentionally made to work that way. But that's not the case. We can even think of examples where, you know, something, someone accidentally throws a rock and it lands so that it blocks a door. Congratulations, that's a doorstop, but it wasn't designed to be a doorstop. It was just an accident. The fact that it functions as something does not mean that it was intentionally made to be that. So no, therefore they must have a designer. Yeah, if they were designed, they would have a designer, but we have no reason to think they are designed. Get to the actual explanation. And that designer is God. Again, there's nothing leads to this, just as this. Nothing leads there. They're just making it up. The living creatures only appear designed. Exactly. Natural selection can account for this apparent design. Exactly. Poorly adapted organisms tend to die off and do not pass on their genes. Exactly. Wow, they respond without changing the topic completely. But living creatures have irreducible complexity. No, there's no such thing as irreducible complexity. All their essential parts must be in place at the same time or the organism dies. Nope, that's absolutely false. So God must have... No, again, we haven't even shown any reason why God would have had to do anything. A gradual evolutionary path simply will not work. Yes, it will. The perfect example of this is something that Michael B., the irreducible complexity guy, brought up, which is that a mousetrap will not function unless it has all parts. But of course, it doesn't have to function as a mousetrap. If you remove the spring, you have a tie clip. It can still function. It just doesn't function as a mousetrap. And you have this this example of, you know, you couldn't gradually evolve a bird's wing because half a wing won't fly. No, but it will be good for maintaining balance, for using the wind to run faster and stuff like that. It can have another function. So, and one idea, as far as I'm not a biology guy, but one thing I've heard is that birds, early birds, or the ancestors of birds, would actually use their wings to, when roosting their eggs, to keep the warmth in. That's the original purpose, within quotation marks, of the wing. That's how it was used. I don't know if that's correct or incorrect, but that's a proposed function for half a wing. So it doesn't have to work as what it currently is. It just has to work for something. It has to provide some evolutionary benefit. So, false. Atheist responds, just because you can't imagine a gradual stepwise way constructing. Yeah, it's a fair response. We can do better. DNA has information. Okay, now you've changed the subject. So, creationists. Irreducible complexity can't even be defended against a straw man that you yourself have built. The design argument against evolution doesn't work. You can't even defend that against responses that you are in complete control of. There should be, there could be, yeah, DNA has information in it. The instructions to form a living being. Yeah, chemical instructions, yes. And information never comes about by chance. Actually, yes. I'll show you. Just rolling some dice here. Let's see. There we go. There we go. This configuration is distinct. Oh, it doesn't update live. There's lag. This configuration, position and side showing, is different from this configuration. How do you know that? Well, because there's information there. This is information, what you're seeing right now. And it was created by chance. This was not intentionally made by a mind. I did not come up with this idea. Okay? So no. Information does not require a designer. It doesn't require a mind. Knowledge requires a mind, but knowledge and information are two different things. The information in DNA is, well, there's a difference in terms of complexity, but there's no, but in principle, it's the same as the information in any other chemical. You mix sodium hydroxide and hydrochloric acid. Something's going to happen. There's your instructions for making water with table salt in it. It just happens. This does not require any sort of intelligence to place the information there. It's chemistry, which boils down to physics. There are quantum mechanical explanations for why electrons have to be configured certain ways and blah, blah, blah. It's simply the laws of nature that make it happen or describe what happens, and there's no intelligence involved. There could be an undiscovered mechanism that generates information in the DNA. It's not undiscovered, so we know where it comes from. Give us time and we'll eventually discover it again, apparently. And even if DNA did come from intelligence, why do you think intelligence is God? That intelligence is God. Maybe aliens seeded life on Earth. Okay, how does the Christian respond? The resurrection of Jesus provides existence of God. You are changing the subject. So, again, Christians, never use the DNA is information and information requires a designer argument. It's so bad that when you make up a response to it, it falls apart. You can't even defend it against a straw man that you are in complete control of. The resurrection of Jesus, blah, 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 blah. Hang on. You don't actually have any proof that Jesus rose from the dead. Correct. You don't even have any proof that he existed as described. Let's do this. I do not consider myself a mythicist. I am perfectly fine with the idea that there was a historical figure that was attributed with all this stuff. It may be a combination of historical figures who were around at the time, saying things, and you know, one of them became well known by a certain group or within a certain group. Not so well known that historians would have paid attention to it, but so well known within a group. And then after his death, that group got larger and larger and larger, and that's why there's no historical, contemporary historical references to Jesus, because he didn't, you know, no one paid attention to anything like or very few, like a small group of people, could have been dozens, could have been hundreds, paid attention to him while he was alive. After he died, that group started embellishing, making up stuff, and oh yeah, he's back from the dead. I saw him at the mall, you know, Elvis style, or whatever, and that played a part in spreading the myth, and then people paid attention to it because there was a myth about it, and I think that is a more credible explanation than it's just some people made him up. I think you need some sort of seed of a story here that to get it going. People would not be talking about, hey, I saw Elvis at the mall, if Elvis was not a real historical person. Someone just made up someone like that. No, it's not believable. Or as believable anyway. So no, I am not a mythicist. I am convinced that Jesus did not exist as described, because as described, he had magical powers that are physically impossible. So he definitely didn't exist as described. But I'm fine with him having existed. I don't care. What Christians believe is that he existed as described in the Bible, and that is false. I'm a mythicist in that sense, but so is everyone who is not deluded. Even Christians who don't take the Bible literally don't believe that Jesus walked on water and stuff like that. That's just embellishments added later. They believe in the smart things he said, stuff like that. Which weren't that smart, but for the time they were okay. Some of them. Well, a lot of it wasn't, but, you know, whatever. Perhaps under certain rare chemical conditions, dead organisms can come back to life. I suppose it's possible. I highly doubt that. What I'm saying is that I don't believe the resurrection happened. There's no evidence that it did. Oh. Change the subject. Don't ever use the resurrection argument. It's so bad that you can't even defend it against a straw man that you are in complete control of. The Bible claims that God exists and that it is his word to us. Furthermore, what the Bible says must be true since God cannot lie. This is a circular argument. Right, it's so bad that you can't even defend it against a straw man that you are in complete control of. Predictive prophecy shows that the Bible must be inspired by God. The Old Testament prophecies concerning Christ, for example, were fulfilled. Let's see how the atheist responds. Low probability isn't zero. People win the lottery, blah, 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 blah. Perhaps maybe the Gospels embellished what Jesus did so that it would agree with the Old Testament prophecies. Yes! Exactly. The straw man got it right. Next. How do you respond to this? I have personal experience by changing the subject, of course. In other words, prophecies? Such a bad argument that you can't even defend it against a straw man you are in complete control of. Personal experience. Unfortunately, your personal experience are not open to investigation. I only have your word for it. And second, how do you know that such subjective feelings are really a result of God? Yeah. And no response. So all these arguments, let's see, which ones are there? Kalam. Design, irreducible complexity, information in DNA, the resurrection, biblical inerrancy, prophecies in the Bible, and personal experiences. All of those are so bad that even Jason Lisle himself, Dr. Liar himself, acknowledges there is no way to even defend these against objections you yourself make up. So don't ever use these arguments. They are stupid, even by the... even according to your own cult leaders. Not conclusive. It should be noted that all the facts used by Christians in the above hypothetical conversations are true. Nope, not a single one of them are. Yes, God is the first cause. You say so. It's not true, though. Yet these facts, they're not facts. The way these so-called facts are used as not decisive. Well, absolutely not. You're making them up. None of the above arguments really prove that God exists or even indicate that God exists. They are so weak that you have to change the topic. Some are very weak because personal experience. They're all very weak, evidently. Moreover, most of the creationist explanations are actually pretty reasonable. Yeah, because they're correct. Given his view of the world, even given your view of the world, they're correct. You're just wrong, that's all. He's not being illogical. Wow, thank you. Oh no, I think I know where they're going. He's being consistent with his position. Yeah, and you're usually not. Problem of evil, problem of divine hiddenness, blah, blah, blah. And we must learn to argue on the level of worldviews if we are to agree in a cogent and effective fashion. Well, that's not how I'd put it, but you're right. We need common ground in order to lead. You know, if we can't agree on A, there's no point in trying to lead us from A to B. Show me how you get to A first. We need something that we both agree on. And the only thing we can both agree on is things that are empirically verifiable. Of course, you choose to reject those things, like evolution, an old Earth, an old universe. You reject these things, even though they are empirically verifiable. So, no, we can't have a common ground because you refuse to have a common ground. The best argument for the existence of God will be a big picture kind of argument. Yeah. When you said that we're being illogical, or that we're not being illogical, I think I know where you're going. God doesn't believe in atheists. Blah, blah, blah. The Bible teaches us. Next. Doesn't matter. Hang on, what? Yeah, Romans. Yeah. We actually do believe in God, so you say. According to the Bible, which you have admitted is something that you can't count on to be interpreted literally. In fact, biblical inerrancy argument is so weak that you can't even defend it against a straw man that you are in complete control of. So you're using it now. You're citing the Bible to try to prove God. You can't do that. Because an atheist does believe in God, by definition, an atheist does not believe in God. Doesn't matter which definition of atheism you're going with. That's sort of the whole point. But does not believe that he believes in God. No, stop telling me what I believe. I do not believe in God. He's a walking bundle of inconsistencies. You just said the opposite. Behavioral inconsistency. Okay, this is going to be fun. That's how we know that you don't believe that the things you claim to believe. For example, you believe that you shouldn't lie, and you lie all the time. That's a behavioral inconsistency. What is the behavioral inconsistency that goes against? What is it that we believe that we do not act in accordance with? This is going to be fun. Consider an atheist university professor who teaches that human beings are simply chemical accidents. Well, you can put it that way. It's not a very flattering way of putting it, but it's not false. The end result of a long and purposeless chain of biological evolution, yeah. But then he goes home and kisses his wife and hugs his children as if they were not simply chemical accidents, but valuable, irreplaceable persons. But there's no contradiction here. The fact that something is a chemical accident does not mean that I can't assign value to it. It doesn't make it replaceable. It doesn't make it not a person. It doesn't make it undeserving of respect and worthy of love. Now, I know. So you're saying that the salt forming in the experiment I mentioned before, sodium hydroxide and hydrochloric acid, that salt is worthy of love and respect. No, I didn't say that all chemical accidents are equal. One very important thing to note is the evolutionary benefit of having instincts that make us care about the specific chemical accidents that are our peers, our offspring, the members of our pack, if you will. We're social animals. And if we didn't have instincts that made us function as such, we would have died out. So we instinctively assign value to certain things, in particular things that we recognize as being like ourselves. The more similar to us they are, the more value we assign to it, the more respect we have for it, and so on. This is why there's such a thing as racism, because we see a person who looks different and we therefore assume he's not one of us. And that instinct is present in all of us, I think, and it's something that we have to realize is not a good thing. So nature doesn't always get it right. This is perfectly consistent with what I'm saying, and that this is all natural. I mean, God would have made us such that we would care about everyone. And don't tell me free will. We can still care about everyone if we are instinctively programmed to do so, because then will doesn't factor into it. So this is simply not a contradiction in any way here. Consider an atheist who is outraged at seeing a violent murder. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, murder is not about, oh, a chemical accident did something to a chemical accident, why should I care? I acknowledge that I don't want to live in a world where people murder each other, because I live in that world and might therefore be murdered. Therefore, I am against the idea of murder. In an atheistic evolutionary universe where people are just animals, murder is no different than a lion killing an antelope. Yes, it is. Keyword murder. It's not murder for the lion to eat. The motive matters. The lion is killing to preserve its own existence. You can basically call that self-defense. It needs to kill to eat. We wouldn't get upset at baking soda for reacting with vinegar. Correct. But that is not the same thing. The fact that something is chemicals doing stuff to chemicals, that's... Let me put it like this. You get upset when a man bangs another man in the ass. But it's just a human having sex with a human. If you get upset with that, you should get upset when a husband and a wife have sex for procreative purposes, because in both cases we're talking about a human having sex with a human. They're the same thing, so you should be upset by both. Yet you see a difference. But I can't see a difference between two similar. This is ridiculous. This is simply ridiculous. It do not make sense in an atheistic view. Actually, yes, it makes perfect sense. What doesn't make sense in a Christian view of life is that murders couldn't happen in the Christian way of life, because bad things can't happen. Was it that God couldn't prevent the murder? I thought he was omnipotent. Was it that God didn't want to prevent the murder? I thought he was omnibenevolent and would help the supposed victim. He should have saved him. Was it that he couldn't, or was it that he didn't want to? Is he incompetent, or is he evil? Pick one. Many atheists behave morally and expect others to behave morally as well. Yeah, but absolute morality simply does not comport with atheism. Absolutely correct. Doesn't comport with Christianity either. Why should there be an absolute objective moral standard? There isn't. People are simply accidents of nature. There isn't. You're absolutely right. There isn't. Of course, people can assert that there is a moral code. Well, yeah, there are many moral codes. But who is to say that what that moral code should be? I am. And you are. Everyone is. Some people think it's okay to be racist. Yeah, exactly. And under your worldview, no one does. Well, or everyone does. Because it's either objectively morally correct and everyone has this moral code, or no one does, because it's morally wrong. Others think we should kill people of other religions and ethnicities. I suppose you do, for example. Who's to say which position should be followed? Well, you say that all sort you. Well, in many cases, not necessarily this, but in many cases, most creationists are perfectly fine with all kinds of morally reprehensible things, like oppressing people for being different, for example. Any standard would be your own, subjective and arbitrary. This is exactly what we observe. Now, some atheists might respond, morality is subjective. Yes, we each have our own moral code, correct. But of course, this statement, and therefore you cannot impose your personal morality on other people. Self-refuting, because when you say, can't do that, no, I can have a moral code that tells me that I think it's wrong for you to impose your code on me. There's nothing contradictory about that. They are imposing their moral code on other people. Right, I think that my moral code is better than yours. And yes, I do think I have the right to impose it in some sense on you, because according to my code, the world will be better if I do that. According to your view, yeah, you have the same problem. And you know what that means? It means we're not going to get along until you change your mind. Because your code results in people being hurt, and mine doesn't. When push comes to shove, no one really believes that morality is merely subjective personal choice. Yes, I absolutely do. But my personal choice is measurably, objectively better conducive to well-being of the well-being of as many as possible than yours. And you, in your view, is a threat to people like me. It's that simple. And you are a direct threat to many people, even people that I know, that you would kill if you got things your way. And you would probably kill me for also wanting to protect them. Logical inconsistency. Another inconsistency occurs when atheists attempt to be rational. Yeah, here we go. Rationality involves the use of laws of logic. Yes, correct. Laws of logic prescribe the correct. No, they don't. They describe. Consider the argument. If it's snowing outside, then it must be cold out. It is snowing, therefore it is cold out. This argument is correct because of blah blah blah, modus ponens. Correct. You know who invented the modus ponens? Humans. Laws of logic like modus ponens are immaterial, universal, invariant, abstract entities. Exactly, because we define them as such. Well, they're immaterial because they're not material things. Or, well, you could argue that they are configurations in our heads, but what's in our heads is a reference to them. So I would agree that they're immaterial. They're universal, invariant, abstract entities. Yes, because we have defined them as such. We did not say, if A then B, A therefore B, on Tuesdays in New York City is a valid form of reasoning. We said, if A then B, A therefore B is a valid form of reasoning. We did not specify that it only applies on Tuesdays in New York City. Works just as well as in Africa as it does in the United States, and just as well as on Friday as on Monday. Exactly, because we define them as such. Laws of logic stems from God's overall nature, sovereign nature. Blah, blah, blah. They are a reflection of the way he thinks. No. I did not know that 1 + 1 + 1 equals 1, for example. So laws of logic are not a reflection of God in any way. Also, problem of evil indicates that God somehow can be omnipotent and omnibenevolent and still allow bad things to happen. That's not logical. So laws of logic are absolutely not consistent with God's nature in any way. The stories about God are made up by people who didn't even care about thinking logically. God has all knowledge. Well, then he would know about bad things and therefore make sure they don't happen. They will be logical. No, evidently not. The law of non-contradiction, for example, stems from the fact that God does not deny himself. No, it stems from the fact that things mean what they mean, and they don't mean what they don't mean. An entirely black cat cannot also be entirely white, because it follows from what the word entirely means. See what I mean? We know some of God's thoughts because he revealed himself. No, you just assert that he did. It doesn't exist. However, the atheist cannot account for laws of logic. I just did. We made them up. We identified what constitutes valid reasoning, and we described it in terms of laws. Instead of having thousands upon thousands of examples that all follow the same form, we recognize that this form of argument leads to a valid conclusion if the premises are true. Therefore, we will describe it as a law of logic. It's that simple. Most atheists have a materialistic outlook, meaning that they believe that everything that exists is material or explained by a material process. Thank you for mentioning that. But laws of logic are not material. No, but they are explained by material processes that happen in the brain. Logical reasoning would be impossible. Yeah, without a brain. I mean, we're seeing a clear example of that from you. You don't have a functioning brain, so you can't reason logically. No one is denying that atheists are able to reason and use laws of logic. Well, thank you. The point is that if atheism were true, which it is, well, depending on what God you're talking about, strong atheism is true with respect to your God, definitely. If you're talking about weak atheism, it can't be true because it's not even a claim. So it's meaningless to say it's true or false. The fact that atheists are able to reason demonstrates that he is wrong. No, absolutely not. You simply don't understand logic, or you do, but you're lying. How could there be laws without a lawgiver? There is a lawgiver. We created the laws of logic. It's that simple. The atheist cannot account for the existence of laws of logic. I just did. Why they're immaterial? How could they be anything else? Why do I need to account for something that is self-evident? A descriptive law can hardly be material unless you count the material upon which it is written. Why they are universal? Because we define them as such. Why they don't change with time? Because we didn't define them as such. And 5, how human beings can possibly know about them or their properties, because we have brains. Of course, all these things make perfect sense on the Christian system, according to which laws of logic can't even exist, because God contradicts laws of logic. Laws of logic owe their existence to the biblical God. No, they couldn't exist if the biblical God exists, because the biblical God is full of contradictions. Again, problem of evil, problem of divine hiddenness, being perfect and still having character flaws, being without sin yet committing every one of the 7 deadly sins. In the story, according to which he is morally perfect and he breaks every moral law he has. No, it's atheists who reason logically, or can reason logically. God, your fictional wizard friend, is incompatible with logic. This is called the Transcendental Argument for the Existence of God, or TAG for short, and it's terrible because it is based on a complete misunderstanding of what logic is, as I already covered. Proof versus persuasion. Though the Transcendental Argument for God is deductively sound, no, it is not. Maybe it's valid, but it's definitely not sound. Not all atheists will be convinced, and no one should be convinced. It may take, I understand, it may take time for them to even understand the argument in the first place. I understand it perfectly, and I understand that it's based on you not understanding what logic is. In the midst, I'm writing this, I am in the midst of an electronic challenge with an atheist who has not yet fully grasped the argument. Well, then the atheist is stupid. That's not my problem. Real life discussions on this issue take time. Yeah, if you take them with stupid people, which you would. And I'm betting this challenge is made up. Or you are bringing it up because you are having it with a particularly stupid person. Proof is objective persuasion. Yeah, just as it is objectively true that laws of logic are man-made. They are generalizations of what we consider valid reasoning. We notice that some arguments are persuasive. We write laws, generalize those. The transcendental argument does indeed objectively prove that God exists. No, it absolutely does not. However, this does not mean that atheists will necessarily cry uncle. Atheists are so strongly motivated to not believe in the biblical God. Well, because the biblical God is disproven, even without looking away from the Bible. A God who is rightly angry with them for their treason against him. No, not according to your own beliefs. Because according to your own beliefs, God is omnibenevolent. That means he is perfectly good to atheists as well, and therefore he is not rightly angry at them. How could he be rightly angry? He is perfectly good and accepts that we are simply people who know better than people like you. And if he has a problem with that, he shouldn't be angry with us. He should reveal himself to us in a way that is actually believable. Which he could and wants to, because he wants us to believe, and yet he doesn't. So the existence of atheists is incompatible with the existence of the biblical God, which is why you have to resort to Bible verses. Where were they? Here, Romans 1:18, 1:18-19. God has revealed himself. No, he hasn't. You assert that he has revealed himself in a very horrible way. It says so in an old book, which is full of contradictions and impossible nonsense and talking snakes and whatnot. And worldwide flood that evidently never happened and couldn't have happened because we'd still be underwater if there was enough water to flood the world. Obviously, this is ridiculous. Why should... This is not how an omnipotent, omnibenevolent, and omniscient being reveals himself if he wants people to believe in him. So, hence the problem of divine hiddenness, which absolutely disproves your God, just as the problem of evil. Okay, so what was the best argument? Are you actually saying that the best argument, because that's what you said here, the best argument for the existence of God, it's tag? The best argument for the existence of God is, I don't know what logic is, because I never bothered to take a very basic course in mathematics or philosophy. Really? That's the best you've got? Well, I'm still an atheist. See ya.